you another inspiring episode of Tahaddi, the podcast dedicated to helping you enhance your management skills and navigate your career journey. Your host, Sameh Makky, your go-to expert in project management and career coaching. Every Wednesday, we invite esteemed guests to join us and share valuable insights from their respective industries. They will provide unique perspectives and practical advice, leaving us all with a nugget of wisdom to apply in our personal and professional lives. Newcomers to our show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to ensure you stay updated with every new release. Now, let's kick off today's engaging discussion. Stay tuned.
Hello and most welcome to our exclusive episode on building confidence and influence in the workplace. Today we are honored to have with us one of the most distinguished and renowned career coaches. Today's episode actually is so exceptional to me because we do not have a normal career and leadership coach, but we have as well a professional who has truly mastered the art of reinvention. Originally hailing from Australia, our guest made a significant career shift from participating law or practicing law to becoming a Hollywood entertainment lawyer. Her unique journey sets her apart in a world filled with career coaches, as she brings a wealth of experience dealing with high-profile personality and navigating high-stakes situations across different countries. Join me welcoming Madeline Miller. Madeline, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
We are so glad actually to have you today and also to discuss and to talking about such important topic to all the professionals in the marketplace. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited for this conversation.
Thanks a lot. Madeline, let's start by one question coming in my mind even before starting our main points regarding the motivation to any of the professionals who are listening to us today. If I'm going and coming from work, I'm doing my tasks routinely on the normal basis, if we can say. What could motivate me to learn more and to try build the confidence while I'm doing my work? Or if I would like actually to put the question in another way, what is the importance of being confident in the workplace?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but I think I recently released an ebook where it's sort of about redefining success. And in it, I identified that work is really integral to everybody's lives, because not only do we spend a lot of time at work, it's where we're sort of thrown into a situation with a bunch of different people we don't get to choose, who can really affect our mood, how successful we feel, and a whole bunch of sort of psychological factors. So I think, discovering how to be consistently and authentically confident in the workplace is not just a career skill, it's a life skill, because there is a lot of studies shown, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, that how important it is to have a sense of purpose in our work for our cognitive and mental health. So, feeling purposeful, feeling motivated goes hand in hand with feeling confident. So I think, you can't really have a career where you're going to spend the bulk of your life and not feel confident. It's going to be very bad for you mentally overall.
Okay. If we take this perspective from the mental health, if we can say, what about the effect on the career path itself? How it will affect my career growth?
Right. Okay. Good question. So that's the sort of psychological, emotional part of it. But the way it's going to affect your career growth is that you're not going to show up as a person that people want to promote. So you're not going to come across as, if you're not confident, you're going to have more difficulties working with people. We know that working with people, no matter what you do, even if you try and avoid it, is one of the most essential skills in any career. So you're not going to present as a team player. You're not going to present as a leader. So you're going to be overlooked for basic promotional opportunities, at the heart of it. And you probably are going to be less inclined to set bigger goals for yourself and really achieve your potential. And that is, again, a psychological need we all have to feel like we're achieving our potential.
Yes, I see. But as I discuss with my colleague from time to time, there is a debate that instead of going into these soft skills and talking about such words like, confidence, adaptability, flexibility, concentrate more on the technical skills. What do you think? Maybe many of us, or many people, for instance, they are going and concentrate more and more and more on the technical aspect without seeing any other aspect of the soft skills of or something like the confidence and the influence, as we discussed today.
So, I mean, I think focusing on your technical skills is important because it builds confidence, right? You're going to feel better when you feel that you're better at your job. So I think that's definitely a component of confidence building. I think what sort of people tend to do is they, particularly early on in their career, when maybe they feel a little less confident or mature, they do focus a lot on their technical skills, which I equate with working very, very hard. And I don't think that that's a bad thing to do, but there gets a point in your career, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners will identify that, where just working hard and just having the knowledge isn't enough to move forward. What you need, therefore, is relationship skills, like building relationships, being able to advocate, self-promote, strategic thinking, a whole bunch of things, which I'm not even going to call them soft skills. I think they're just as important, but just working a lot of hours and having the technical expertise only works for so long. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but there's a cap at how far you'll go just with that.
Amazing. Right. Let's get to the second step. If we are going actually to tell our audience and the joiners till now regarding some practical tools we can use to go ahead and to enforce our confidence.
Oh, okay. It's a big topic. So let me try and sort of break it down in a few steps because, as we know, confidence just doesn't happen like a light switch. We don't go, oh, today I'm going to learn to be confident and tomorrow I'm confident. Confidence is
impossible.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey, right? Like there's a couple of quotes around which I agree with that this isn't the quote, but it's sort of the idea that self-doubt never goes away. What you become better at is just doing it anyway without, pushing through the self-doubt, feeling the doubt and doing it anyway. That's what I consider confidence. I also sort of equate it with resilience, right? Like healthy resilience is like feeling scared, but doing it, right? Like knowing that you can kind of pick yourself up. Yeah. So, to build, I guess, like, let's start at the very basics. Maybe if you're early in your career, or even if you're not, if you've never sort of done this work before, I really think that confidence comes from developing a very strong foundation of who you are, meaning, what are your unique skills, gifts, and talents? What is your purpose? And what is the particular brand, like the workplace you need, definitely the environmental factors that get the best out of you, the work you like to do, but also like what is the kind of brand that you want to emit to the world? How do you want people to see you? And all of those things are the types of things I work on a lot with my clients. I call it alignment, because having that strong sense of alignment is the foundation from which we build a career, right? Like you can't really project yourself into the world without a strong foundation. So I think of each of these things as sort of the building blocks to build the trunk from which you can grow.
Yes, okay. You will give another tips and another practical tools, or we can continue the discussion and it will come actually through our talking.
I was going to say something else about building confidence. So I was thinking about I'm just trying to remember what I was going to say. I had two thoughts. So one was about like the sense of self. Let's keep asking the questions. I'll come back to it. I'm going to cover everything at some point. Yeah.
Yes, sure. One of our joiners, thanks a lot for their time. Actually, Omnia is saying that we must make a balance between two types of skills. If we can consider actually the confidence is a skill besides the technical skills. Sameh is saying social intelligence is very important in the journey. That is for sure, and I think we will come in a part in our discussion for this aspect. Madeline. I have almost 20 years of experience. I'm working in project management and career coaching as well. In some situations, I have the self-doubt that I should be here in this place, or if we can call it the imposter syndrome. And many of the people actually I know how to deal, how to treat it in a healthy way, and to overcome this challenge from time to time in any situation we face.
So when you've felt the imposter syndrome, is it a sense that you might not be doing the right thing with your career, or just that maybe you're not good enough to be where you are?
I feel that I'm not good enough to, for instance, to stay right now and to start the discussion with Madeline and to talk about something like, confidence and influence in the workplace. Yes.
I mean, look, imposter syndrome is a huge topic. Every time I do a video, you mentioned before my content. So every time I do a video on it, my videos are short, they're designed to grab attention. The imposter syndrome videos get a lot of engagement because it's really a huge issue for so many people. And I think that when I do an imposter syndrome video, the level of sort of engagement and the comments I get remind me that it's still very real. And I think some people dismiss it as like, you shouldn't have it, or it's completely made up and like it's society telling you don't belong. And, I really feel like imposter syndrome is a little bit of both. Like, I think sometimes the workplace can feel very alien and foreign to people who, maybe don't feel like they belong there because of like cultural, familial, gender, there's a whole range of different factors. But then I also think that each of us individually is our own worst critic, right? So like I said earlier, the self-doubt is not something that you get rid of. The self-doubt is something you start to own and use it to propel yourself forward. So when you feel, like this imposter syndrome, like when you feel imposter syndrome, for example, are there any sort of messages you start to tell yourself, like any, like,
negative thoughts,
Yeah, negative thought. But I mean, we all tend to have our own, right? Like our own, like they're very similar, but each of us have our own sort of, I call them underlying limiting self-beliefs about what we deserve or what we should, what should be for us in this world. And conquering those is, again, it's almost like a daily practice to remind yourself that you have every right to be here and belong. And I think a lot of the time when we fall into that really negative self-talk, one of the things I encourage my clients to do is to look back at prior achievements. Think about times when they felt successful, fulfilled, alive, when they got positive feedback. And sometimes I get them to write it down, and writing that down and revisiting that can be a very simple tool just to kind of shift, from that negative point of view into a more positive point of view. So it is a lot of mindset work, right? Because it's all internal.
Amazing. I have heard this tip before regarding writing the success story you have passed by and you encountered in your life. So at any time you feel the imposter syndrome or you feel the self-doubt, you can go back to this file and to start to, feel the progress which you have made so far. Yes. So it will go.
Actually, you just made me think of something. There's a very good book that I keep getting recommended, and I haven't read it yet, but it's called The Gap and the Gain. But it's this, so the gap, G-A-P, and gain, G-A-I-N. And it's, again, I haven't actually read it, but I've looked it up and I've been meaning to read it because it's this very simple concept of like, when you feel like that, people tend to focus on the gap between where they are and where they want to go or what they don't have. Whereas they suggest to switch to the gain, like where you've been to where you are now. So that simple kind of mindset, instead of looking about what you haven't got, it's the whole, hey, look how far I've come. Exactly like you said.
Amazing. Awesome. Right. We talk a little bit about confidence, but let's talk also about influence. We are making the episode with the title of Building Confidence and Influence in the Workplace. What about the influence? Why we have to be influential actually within the workplace? How it will affect us and how it will affect the people around us?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to the confidence. We sort of use those terms interchangeably, but I think influence is, again, it's a reaffirmation of your positive self-image. So when you have a positive self-image, you're more able to get other people's buy-in on your ideas or, what you might want them to do to support you for the team or anything like that. It's also a really good way when you can kind of feel naturally and authentically influential to network. If you want to change your career, if you want to put yourself forward. So if I can use an example from my life, when I I was working in Hollywood as a production, like in a production company as legal and business affairs, but I really wanted to move to the UK and work on the James Bond film. And I'd worked for those producers before, but there wasn't a job. I just wanted the job, right?
Okay, so yes,
but I had worked with them before on a different movie with the company I was at. And I had worked very hard, going back to the hard work, the technical abilities, and I had received good feedback from them. So already my hard work and my technical abilities had left a good impression. But that wasn't enough for them to say, hey, Madeline, we want you to have this job. It was up to me to sell myself to them for the next job. So I already had created, I had a bit of confidence because they'd given me good feedback. I'd worked very hard. So they kind of, thought highly of me. But my job was then to, be influential enough to get them to agree to give me a job. So so I had to really just, I couldn't think about the rejection. I just had to position myself and ask. And I did ask. I said, can I come and be, the production attorney on the film? And at first he was like, that would be nice, but I've got somebody else in mind. And I was like, okay, I'll come back to you if that doesn't work out. I came back. It's like, actually, that person didn't work out, but I did have somebody else. I was like, that's fine. I'll come back to you. That is confidence, right? And then when I finally came back again and he was like, well, actually, this could work. All right. I was like, okay, let me tell you how I am going to be valuable for you. And that was me using my influence, right? Like, I've done this before. Here's the value I can add. And this is how I know it's going to be a good fit. But, that comes with taking some risks, doing hard work, learning the technical skills, and then taking risks. Oh, I think it's frozen on my end. Oh, go back.
Sorry for that. I think the connection.
I think, yeah, I don't know if your listeners, it's a little bit soft when you're talking now, but I can hear you.
Hello?
I can just hear you.
Now you hear me again? Sorry for that. I think the connection got out.
Oh, yes, I can hear you now. Yes, good.
Okay, that is fine. I will come to 2 or 3 points you mentioned, giving us the confidence. Like, for instance, hard working, it will give us confidence. Our technical skills, if it's good actually, and we enhance it from time to time, also it will give us a confidence. But you mentioned as well also the relation between those skills and the persuasive communication. It's a complementary part actually. We should have the persuasive communication along with other skills so we can go for more confident and more influence about the others in the surroundings.
I think so. I think persuasion, like the psychology of persuasion, is very important. I think understanding those psychological principles is important. I will say again, like, all of this comes from having a very strong alignment, right? So if you have never worked out your professional values, I believe that you won't be as successful as you could otherwise be, because when we are feeling and when I say professional values, do you know what I mean by that? I'm not sure if that's like commonly universally understood. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not familiar expression, but I got it.
Okay. So, your professional values are similar maybe to your personal values, but they're the types of things that you really want in your work life that, it might be the reason you do work, it might be the type of work, but it might also be, the types of behaviors you like to demonstrate. Maybe you like autonomy, maybe you like collaboration, maybe you like, for example, my top 5 values are communication, consistency, creativity, being of service, and integrity, right? So these are the things that I want to embody in my work life. And I obviously like that from other people, but often we don't get our values reflected in other people, and that can be very triggering for us. Somebody in the chat said, what happens, I can't see it now, but what happens when you have like a narcissistic boss? So yeah, that is a huge test, because obviously if you're identifying that behavior, it's a violation of your own values, right? So being clear on your own values is important for your own sense, your own confidence, because it also is a guide which is going to show you how to behave. So if you are feeling triggered, or you're feeling under stress, or you're feeling angry, which we all do in the workplace, right? Like the values are a way to have you align with your best self. So like, okay, I'm feeling like this and I want to respond this way. Does that align with my values and how I see myself? Does this actually confirm my positive self-image? Because we all have a positive self-image where we think we're kind of special, right? So I think the values work is very important for you as a way to kind of moderate your behavior and work out how to be more influential. So that's one part of it. Then I think from that, like I always think of influence as I give a lot of workshops on this, and one of the interesting things I discovered when I was just doing some research, I was playing around with the word influence. I discovered that the word itself comes from a Latin root, influere, which means to flow in. It actually referred to a celestial fluid flowing from the stars into the hearts of humans to help them live out their destiny.
Oh, yes, amazing.
It's amazing. I was like, wow. So I sort of ran with that idea of like, okay, so when you're influencing people, you're living out your destiny, you're being very genuine and authentic, right? Like you're kind of what we call like flow state. Like you're not preoccupied with what other people think about you. You're really focused on embodying your values and showing them to the world in the way you communicate. So that's how I like to think of influence. I think influence is very subjective and individual, but it requires you to have done some of that interrogation of self, like who are you, right? What do you really care about? So that's the influence part. The persuasion part I consider to be a little bit more external. Like, okay, I'm influencing, I'm charismatic, I'm confident, I'm sure of who I am, I align with my best self. That's influence. And then persuasion is like, how do I get that person to see my point of view or take an action? And that's when we get into sort of those more like that actually does matter about the other person. Like I want that person, I want you, Sameh, to like believe what I'm saying, right? Like what am I going to do to make you take an action I want you to? So there's a lot of science around the tools of persuasion. I just did a workshop on this last week actually, and it's really interesting. So, I mean, I can keep talking about it if you want, or you can ask me another question. Sorry.
When you have listed your values directly, you pick actually the 5 values you are believing. And in the career coaching sessions, we start by defining values for the people, so they can start to understand why they are taking these decisions, why they are taking these movements, how they are going actually to put a plan for their career, and so on.
Yes.
Do you believe that it's important to everyone who from the listeners right now to start to define their values and to start to understand themselves more better, so they can know how to go with their career path?
Absolutely. I think understanding your values is the core. It's step one. And I even have a values exercise I can share with your listeners later. But this is the work I do with my clients at the very beginning. I can tell you, I do a values exercise. I do a energy audit, as in like what gets the best out of you in the workplace, what gets the worst out of you, and in terms of like environment, topics, modes of working. So just having that clarity. Then I always do a mission and purpose statement. Like, what is your purpose? Like, what are you here to do? What are your skills and talents? What are the results you love? And like, what makes you feel the most fulfilled and engaged? So and I have an exercise for that too. So getting clear on your purpose is essential. The other thing I do, which I'm not sure a lot of career coaches do because it's not very conventional, is I actually get my clients to do like a personal branding exercise. And I give them brand archetypes that advertisers use, which kind of categorize human behavior into 12 different archetypes. And those archetypes come from like Plato and Carl Jung. So they're kind of like philosophical and psychological developments, like categorizations of human behavior, right? And brands will use them to define their own voice. And I say to my clients, I want you to think of yourself as a brand, right? Like pick a couple of these human archetypes and say like which ones really represent who you are. And then pick another one that you wish you were seen as. Like maybe you feel like that's in you, but you're not showing that to the world. And that's what we're going to work on, how you can get that across to people. So that to me is, those things are the core of being influential. It's that level of self-awareness that you really need.
Okay. I will take from this actually, and I will go for the personal branding. It's a repeated word right now. Many people are questioning: does everyone need to build his personal branding or her personal branding while they are doing their career and they try to enhance their career path from time to time, or it's only for the people who are going to be some famous and they need to make content, for an instance, and so on?
Great question. And that's sort of, I mean, this concept of personal branding is sort of new. And of course, there's a lot of people that push back because they're like, well, I'm not a brand, like I'm not advertising myself. And I totally understand it. But that's why I take these archetypes that are literally like human behavior. So you have like the outlaw, the lover, the creator, and you read them and all of them sound like a bunch of, sound like a person, like a bunch of beautiful aspirational things. And I guarantee every person that reads those is going to say, for at least two, probably more, that sounds like me. So all I'm talking about when I talk about personal branding, it's not like a manipulative, artificial, like I'm a brand. It's more like, hey, this embodies me. This represents who I am. Am I showing myself to the world truly and authentically? Because I'm going to be more powerful if I do.
Yes, okay. Please, if you can allow me to take some question and inquiries from the chats, and after that, we can continue our discussion. Yani, Ola is saying, how do we deal with a narcissist manager in a confident way?
Yes, that was the one I was looking for before. So yeah, so I think once you've done that sort of preliminary work, that alignment work, that gives you a much stronger sense of self. Right. And when you have that stronger sense of self, when you have that clarity, that self-acceptance, that is going to enable you to set boundaries not only in a healthier, but a more kind of consistent way. I think if we have like a narcissistic manager, it's very easy to get pulled in to their world and their way of doing things. But having your very, very clear identity about like what you will stand for and what you're not is a much more powerful way for you to sort of set boundaries from. Because with narcissists, you have to, right? Like you have to, there's a whole approach to narcissism. I forget what they call it, but it's the kind of like, it's not stonewalling, but it's like you give responses, but you never give too much. Like you don't get involved emotionally. You don't reject because you need to like keep the peace, but you also don't sort of get pulled into their world because they'll keep trying to pull you into the drama, into the emotion, right? And it's a lot easier to set those boundaries and that kind of consistent.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
When should I decide I have to leave this job, which actually has this kind of manager, especially the narcissist manager? In what limits I should put it to myself?
So again, this is an individual choice, but I think understanding all of the things I just said is a very good way to help define your goals. So, do some goal setting. Like, where do I want to be? Like, what is my North Star vision? Relate it back to your purpose. Have I sort of thought through my career trajectory, my plan? Is this job essential? Do I need to be here for one more year because I need that on my resume? Or is this job, can I get this experience elsewhere? Or can I let this go because it's so bad for my mental health? And, what's the job market like? Like all of these are factors, but you really need a sense of like, what's your career look like for you? Because at the end of the day, like a job is a job, but a career is your own, right? It's a journey and you control it. So I think you have to make the best decisions for yourself with all the information you have, but that clarity about what you want is so essential.
Okay, we can say multi-criteria are there, and it's individual according to every individual actually to decide finally, is it okay to continue or no, it's not.
Yeah, like what are your priorities? And in life, your priorities will shift. Like sometimes, like again, when I was in my first entertainment job and I was worked very hard and feeling burnt out and really unhappy, and I wasn't in a good position. For a period, I had to stay there because I literally needed the money and I needed my visa, so like I didn't have the luxury to leave. But from that space, I could then I think I've broken up. No. But then from there, I could start to create a plan. Like I could feel, if I created a plan for my career, I felt more in control. So when the time came, I could leave, you know?
Okay, I see. Planning for the career and the strategic planning, especially what I need to be after 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, and writing them and going with this succession plan, for instance, can give us more confidence while we are dealing with others in the workplace.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you feel somebody said intentional, exactly. When you're feeling intentional, you're going to feel more in control. I think there's a big sense sometimes that our careers or our jobs own us. And I want to try and get people's mindset out of that while something might be tough, learn what you can. I always say control what you can control and have a plan for the future. Like that's the best you can do. And I think, if people say my boss is a narcissist, my boss is a narcissist, like really interrogate that. Like, are they?
We have to
Maybe,
rethink. Yes.
yeah, like, and you know what? You're going to have difficult people everywhere. So what skills can you develop now? Because I guarantee you at some point you're going to need them again.
In my point of view, actually, I left and I shifted from many companies actually. So the negative thoughts which were coming in my mind in the first one, and I took the decision actually to move to another entity. When I went to the second one, I found more negative aspects than the first one, and I have thought that it was the end of the world, and I cannot continue. But when you are taking more and more steps, you will get to be more matured actually regarding the decision which you are making in your career. Mr. Hossein Barakat, yes, please.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say I'm a perfect example of that. Like I went to law school because I wanted to feel like I had an identity because I was 26 and I didn't have a career. And I thought that going to law school would be the answer, right? And then I switched jobs 5 times in 5 years, right? And every time I was doing, every time I was like, oh, the grass is greener there. This person's difficult there. I hate this. I was like, but after a while, I had to realize like I'm the common denominator, not the jobs, right? Not the people.
No problem. I'm the issue.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily I'm creating the problems, but like the turmoil is within me, not elsewhere. Yeah.
Yes, I see. And sometimes we have to think in ourselves firstly.
Yeah, like it's yeah. I mean, I could go on about that for ages, but like
I got the question recently. I got the question recently from one of my colleagues. Why is they are dealing like this? And every time actually she transfer or she shift from one place to one place, she find actually the complaint. So she started to think maybe the problem is me.
Yeah, when there's a pattern, it's you. And I don't mean like you're bad. I mean like you've got to do some work because you will never find the perfect situation if you're looking for other people to solve it for you. Like it has to come from within. Again, it has to connect to your purpose and your values.
Yes, amazing. Mr. Hossein Barakat is saying that thinking positive enhances the confidence. I fully agree with him. My opinion is to influence by give the confidence to others and support and that align with our competences. Is it okay if we are making the people around us more confident and we will support them more and more? That will give us more confidence actually in our ability.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think positively influencing others is a very reciprocal thing, but to positively influence others, it's got to come from a genuine place. So you can, if you're just supporting others around you, but you're not supporting yourself. I see this a lot with my clients, right? Like they're like, I do everything for my team, and then one of my team members like was so ungrateful and they get completely emotional. And I'm like, it's great that you're supporting your team, but if you're not supporting you, it's not actually genuine. And it's a little bit manipulative because you expect your team or you expect the people around you to sort of value you and worship you. But that means you're looking like to them for affirmation. That's not genuine self-confidence.
Yes, I see. That is great. There is one question, or I think, yes, one question from engineer Haysam Al-Qut. He is saying, if confidence could be bottled and sold as a performance-enhancing drug in the workplace, what would be the most common and the most dangerous side effect? Wow.
Hilarious.
Amazing. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's pick like a good effect and a bad effect. So like a good effect and
Yes,
a dangerous
that's
effect.
right.
So
That's right.
I think, good confidence, right? I think the positive side effect would be, which is what I strive towards, happier workplaces. Because when people, like I said, are genuinely confident, they're positive. And positivity is what we need in the workplace, right? When
Yes,
people,
sure.
the negative side, I think or the dangerous side effect would be if confidence veers into arrogance or dominance or like narcissism. Yeah, like if somebody's become so confident that they're not constantly self-reflecting, that's what I mean. Like nobody is confident all the time. That's not
Yes.
normal. Like only a narcissist is confident all the time. Like you've the self-doubt is there, but it's the health. Like let's reframe confidence as a healthy self-acceptance. That's what I think confidence is. That's the positive side. Healthy self-acceptance.
Yes, okay, amazing. Engineer Amir also is saying that you mentioned hard work. How hard work is affecting the confidence and maybe enhance our confidence
How
confidence.
hard work, was that the question? Oh, you mentioned hard work. What's the question? How do you work hard, or what, or how, like what's
I,
the
I
question?
I believe that he mean how hard work is affecting or enhancing our confidence level.
Okay, yeah. So when when people like to be praised, right? This is one of the tools of persuasion, right? Compliments, genuine compliments. If somebody gives you a compliment for a job well done, you feel good, right? And that's a very
Good.
important part of building confidence. So
Good.
striving to do a good job is important. Now, striving to do a good job is what I would call hard, working hard, but it does not necessarily mean devoting all of your hours and all of your life to your job in order to get recognition, because to me that's an unhealthy way of approaching work. Like sometimes we have to work very hard, right? No matter, like there's certain industries, there's deadline, you don't have work life balance, but that's what I call stress. But managing stress productively and healthily is the way you avoid burnout. So, just working hard and hoping that that gives you recognition, which is the only thing you have to feel good about yourself, is not a path to confidence. But working hard to achieve your goals and strive for excellence and understand that stress is a part of the job, but develop healthy coping mechanisms for jobs, that is when hard work can really make you feel more confident.
Amazing. Now in the marketplace we have two schools. One school is saying that work life balance is should be there, and we have to commit to our other things other than the work. And another school completely on the other side, and saying that there is nothing called work life balance, and you have to work and work and work. This is a life. You have to take something from time to time for sure, but don't depend muchly on 8 hours only work in the day, and after that I will go for my social and my friends and so on. With which school you are?
I mean, I think work-life balance, it's just an expression, right? Like it can mean whatever it means. To me, work-life balance should be very subjective. Some people don't want to work all the time. They want to have like a life where they do X, Y, Z, and and they want to feel that they have enough, but they don't necessarily want more. Like again, it's hard to generalize, but my point is like it needs to be whatever feels right for you. So some people work incredibly hard. Since I've become an entrepreneur, I work like 14, 16 nowadays, but I love it, right? And I'm doing it because I don't want to do it forever like this. I'm building something. So I'm working very, very hard. I don't have work-life balance, but that's my choice because it's in pursuit of my goals and I don't want to do that forever, right? So I do think work-life balance is highly subjective. I think the difficulty becomes when, and you will know, I mean, if you're honest with yourself, you'll know when work controls your life too much. And, some of the signs of work controlling your life is that your personal relationships are suffering, your health is suffering, maybe you can't, eat well, maybe you don't exercise, maybe you don't see your friends, maybe you don't see your partner, you don't have time for your kids. If people are complaining and you feel bad, like that's a sign that work is probably invading too much of your life. But that's on you, right? Like there are, workplaces demand a lot of us, but it's up to us to work out how much we want to give and can give. So in my recent book I just wrote, I talk about this concept of career enmeshment. So when we And I think when we work really, 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 really hard, it's this sense that all of our value is tied to our job. And I think tying all of our value to one thing, particularly our work, particularly if it's not our own company, right? If you're working for an employer, can be very unhealthy and very destructive.
I like your opinion too much regarding it's subjective, and every person actually should start to judge from time to time how his all aspects of the life affected actually by the work, and how the level of the work he is doing. So it's great actually.
Correct.
Type. I will go to another point. Also, one of the main factor, in my opinion, affecting the confidence and influence, but we can elaborate more on it regarding the networking and relationship building. How it affect our confidence and influence level with the people.
Yeah. So, a lot of jobs, particularly as we move up the ladder, do require networking. And I think networking has always, well, maybe not, but where I grew up in Australia, networking sort of had like a negative connotation, like it was like fake, like, oh, you're networking, you're looking around for someone more important. Like that's how I saw it. But I just see networking as relationship building. And like we've said, a lot of things are born from relationships. I got my job in Hollywood because I worked my relationships and I created relationships. And really, I just did that by showing up authentically, right? Like understanding my self-worth and being like gracious to people. So I think, like, I mean, if you want some really practical skills, like I never know how much I should simplify, but in terms of networking, like if you want some, if you have something of value to add if you have something of value to offer somebody, offer it, right? There's this rule in the psychology of persuasion called reciprocity. So people are more inclined to give or do something for you if you give or do something for them first. Now, it's called, being like a reciprocal thing. Now, it can be small, right? Like maybe it's like, I'd love to take you out for a coffee. Maybe they're like, okay. Or if they're like, oh, I can't do that. Be like, I'd love to just jump online. By the way, I know that you're in this industry and I read this really interesting article recently and I thought you might like it. Just little things like that. Just softly and gently start to build positive relationships with people. Another thing that I think is really important is learning to introduce yourself with confidence. Now, I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like if they're in a room and they go up to people, and I have this exercise where I get my clients or my workshop participants to, instead of just saying like, hi, I'm Madeline, I'm a career and leadership coach, I get them to practice with like, so if you say, hey, well, who are you? What do you do? And I start with the problem. Like, how Gen Z and millennials are really struggling in the workplace to get ahead? Because we kind of know that's true, right? Like they struggle with confidence in the workplace. I say, well, what I do is work with them to develop the healthy mindset and confidence in order to be more influential. And then I say, for example, just the other day I held a workshop with 60 Gen Z and millennials and we talked through the psychology of persuasion. At the end, they all said they felt more confident dealing with their boss this week. So it's a way of sort of announcing my value by talking about the problem I solve, how I do it, and giving an example. Now, you would tweak that, like you would probably introduce yourself first in a real life situation, but to me, that's adding value to the conversation. And really, that enables the person to be like, oh, that's interesting. Could you tell me more? Other than just be like, hi, I'm Madeline. I'm a career and leadership coach, and looking down at the ground.
Yes, I see. I don't know the question right or not, but if I can say, how should I depend, or how much I can depend actually on the networking to fulfill my confidence in percentage?
Ooh, I think that humans are designed for connection, right? So I think if you
We are social creatures.
Yes, right. So I think if you're networking and you can network, by the way, within a company. Networking doesn't always have to be external, right? Building relationships within a company is very important, because if you are going to become, again, there's so many industries and jobs out there, but this is very general. But if you are going to move up within a company, you're going to have to turn from a manager into a leader, and a leader is required to do a lot of strategic thinking, right? And strategic thinking requires information from areas and people outside of your own team. So, to me, developing those skills really early in your career is going to help you become more of a strategic thinker and and help you become better at getting information when you need it, and sort of really demonstrate to your superiors that you're not just a manager that can get work done, you're a leader that can inspire and think, big picture. So I think the networking, I mean, I'm sorry, I've kind of forgotten what the question was, but I think the networking is
Yes, okay. Regarding how should I depend on the networking and the relationship? Yeah, maybe
yeah,
I don't have the enough technical skills, or I don't have the too much actually from soft skills regarding negotiation, regarding strategic planning, and many other regarding leadership and so on. So can I depend this one heavily on the networking and relation? I have a very good networking and relationship. Can I depend on this one heavily?
um I think if you feel like you don't have, so the question was, or let me explain what I think it is, and you can correct me. So the question is like, I don't have a lot of these experiences or skills yet, so can
Yes.
I rely on network? Yeah, absolutely. And but just think of it like, you don't have to think of it as the end goal right now, like the big picture. You can just think of it as like, hey, this person in my organization has a lot of knowledge, and I would love to know some of that knowledge. Maybe I could ask them to share some of their ideas and thinking with me. Maybe I can ask that person out for lunch, or maybe I could, ask to sit in on their meeting so I can understand what's going on. I mean, again, it's whatever works in your workplace. But I think showing genuine curiosity about
Mm.
other people and their jobs is the easiest and most simple way of starting to network. And it needs to feel genuine because, like I said, everything is based on information and relationships. So the more information you can get and the relationship you can build, the more you're going to set yourself up for success.
Yes, I fully agree. I fully agree. Coach Dua Tahir in the comments are saying that when you stand with your values, it will be more influential if you
100%.
know, yes,
Yeah.
your value.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a very good point to start from regarding the hard work and so on, integrity, compassion, resilience, priorities, to set priorities, for instance, from time to time. I think this is a way actually to know why you are taking the decision and to help you actually take the decision more better. James
Yeah.
is saying, I'm standing. I would say it will be difficulty to receiving feedback. We get to be too confident where we see ourselves as above everybody else. I think he was replying to the question of engineer Haytham regarding the side effects and the bad effects actually from more confidence, or if the level it exceeds the required level of confidence.
I think that's
Uh,
right. I think if you're getting feedback and you don't like the feedback, the first step is to sit and process it. Like, is it what is bothering me about this feedback? Is it something I don't want to admit about myself? Is it something I've heard before and I'm feeling triggered? Is it something because I don't like it because I don't like that person and we don't have a good relationship? Or perhaps I really like that person and them telling me that makes me feel bad because I wanted them to like me. Like, you've got to sort of analyze things from a lot of different perspectives in order to work out how constructive feedback is or isn't. Because, not all feedback is constructive.
Amazing. Another good comment actually. I think believe in yourself and being intentional about you do can be deemed influential. Yes, I fully agree with the statement. Is there any kind of confidence?
Oh, what are the types of confidence? Well, I
Good question.
guess,
I
yeah,
didn't come to this one before.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably. I haven't really thought about it that way. I mean, I think there's, everyone's got different personalities, right? So some people are going to be more extroverted and like appear confident in a room. Some people are more quietly confident. They've just got a very, quiet sense of,
I see.
they're very self-assured. So yeah, I think confidence comes in different forms, but I do think at its heart, does come from a really healthy level of self-acceptance. And I think the desire to always be learning and growing. To me, that's the heart of being confident.
Amazing. Yeah, thinking positively builds your confidence and more on. We will go back to comments. Type. I have now one actually critical aspect when we talk about our topic for today regarding the criticism and the negative feedback. How you deal this one, and you can save your confidence level as it is.
Oh, in terms of receiving negative feedback, yeah,
Yes.
It's a good question. Like I was really bad. I probably still am not great at receiving negative feedback because I feel like, yeah, I mean, for the obvious reasons, right? It can make you feel bad about yourself. But I think that um again, I feel like I'm repeating the same thing, but having that very strong sense of self, what's important to you, what your skills are. Like when you really accept and value the good things about yourself, you're more able to hear the not so good things because the chances are you probably are already aware, right? Like I think sometimes when we react badly to negative feedback, it can be because they're telling us something about ourselves we might want to hide from, right? And that can be very confronting. And our natural instinct is to push it back on the other person. So I
Mm,
think, trying to be as honest with yourself as possible is like, why is this feedback upsetting me so much? Is it something that I can just simply take and grow from? It does not define my value as a person, right? What can
mm.
I do with it? I think sometimes people feel that feedback is unfair or unearned, but they won't say anything in
Any
return.
situation like this, every day we see that in the workplace. Some words are said in such a way, and it affecting the work for maybe a week or 10 days or 2 weeks regarding the negativity of this work and how we receive it.
I had a client who had received negative feedback in a performance review and he was a very successful senior person. And then he was very upset because he felt like he'd been moved off the leadership team. Anyway, he came to me 6 months after that. We started working 6 months and he was still upset about it. And I said to him, well,
6 months.
no, but he was upset about it because he felt he'd been demoted, so it was still very real for him. But I said to him, have you, and he said, a lot of it was unfair and I don't think the person giving it to me realized this. And, he had all these sort of things. And we worked through like, the content of it. But then I said, have you ever said anything to this person? And he said, no. I said, well, it's really hard now 6 months later to revisit that and say, hey, actually, here's some information I don't think you had, or I'd like to explain, why I did this then, because actually there was some reasons for it. And that's the thing. We can feel very hurt by feedback, but we can avoid bringing it up again to clarify, because sometimes we do need to clarify. Sometimes the person doesn't have all the information, or we might just say, I was actually really upset about how that was presented. I've thought long and hard about what you said, and here's what I think I could do better. And here's what, I feel upset about. But people avoid it, right? They get upset, they get hurt, they push it down, they avoid it. And that's when like resentment and anger and all those things can start to fester. And that's when workplaces can become quite toxic. So you
Yeah.
have to be confident enough and assertive enough to bring it up in a constructive way.
That means I have to go back and start for asking for clarification and more discussion, more elaboration actually about what I received and so on. Do you believe that the approach of saying the message is 100% of the message, if you can say? يعني the way Madeline is saying to me now, your performance was not good over the last 2 weeks. The reports are very bad, and such way of negativity or the negative feedback. It's the whole thing. We can consider that actually it's related to the person. It's not personally actually relates to me and so on.
I mean, sometimes feedback in the workplace is personal. And this is my issue with workplaces. It's a lot of interpersonal relationships, and people go in there with their unhealed hurts, their unhealed trauma, and they feel like they can treat other people badly, right? And so I think that I'm not going to say that all the negative feedback you get is fair, but again, you can only control what you can control. So I think you nailed the first step. The first step is to always ask for clarification. If you don't understand why something's being said, if you don't think something's fair, if you don't think what they're saying is clear, you don't know how to change it, like ask for clarification. Seek, like, could you describe that more? What was the impact there? What would you have liked me to do differently? Okay, go away, think about it, go through that sort of sifting through process of like, okay, what's my emotional stuff? What's like actual stuff I feel like I should be saying and advocating for myself about. Then within a week, right? Like try and do it quickly. Go set another conversation and try and have the conversation calmly. And that's a real skill. Most people aren't good at that. Having difficult conversations in the workplace is probably the number one thing that we're all bad at.
Okay, I see. How to deal with your boss for feedback, and how to deal with the negative feedback, and sometimes is a skill.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes,
totally.
I see. Right. Right. There is one not inquiry. I don't know this a question or no. Ahmad Sahar saying that don't you think that a good intention is the spirit of good work? In other words, a crystal clear and fair version, when driven by sincere intentions, build the trust and credibility, and making leadership and influence more effective.
Good intention,
Do
crystal
you
clear and
agree?
fair vision. Yeah, I mean, I think if you have a clear vision and sincere intentions, you definitely are going to come across as credible. I don't think that's enough to build trust. I think that for me, the formula for trust is very simple, but it requires a little bit of work. So for me, like words plus action equal trust, right? Integrity between your words and your actions is how you build trust. But I think what people miss is that they think, well, if I've said one thing, I have to do it exactly the same way, or I just won't do it the same way. But they don't understand why I couldn't do it that way. They don't understand how busy I am, whatever. So like the actions you take constantly have to align with the words, but the words can change. I'm being a little bit vague. Let me give you an example. So just say someone's like, I need you to do this thing, and you tend to be a bit of a people pleaser, and it's going to be really hard for you to do the thing, but you don't want to say no. You say, okay, so they're your words. Yes, I'll have it by this point. Then it turns out that you like really, really can't get it done by that point, or you have to give a piece to somebody else to help you and they don't do as good a job, but you don't tell, so all these complicated things can happen in order for you to strive towards the goal that was probably unrealistic to begin with. And then your actions are that maybe you deliver it and it's not as good, or there's a piece that's not as good but somebody else did, or maybe you don't quite get it in time, or maybe you take a shortcut but you don't communicate that to the other person. Therefore, your actions and your words don't actually seem aligned, and you lose trust and credibility. Right. And then, but you get upset because you're like, well, this was so hard and I didn't have time. This was so unreasonable and so unfair. It's like, okay, but you missed that opportunity because you didn't inform people along the way of like what you could or couldn't do, because we tend to avoid doing that because we want to avoid criticism.
Yes, okay, I see. I see, and I agree actually with you. Sometimes we know we are loading ourselves by something more than our abilities to do, and after that, blaming others, for instance, and not taking the proper time to communicate in proper way. I couldn't imagine actually how the 1 hour passed right now, but I have one question. I will I will not leave the episode without saying to you how to balance between the confidence and humility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of what we've been discussing this whole time. Like, what is the balance, right? So I think the example somebody gave before that led us to feedback, like if you get feedback, if you get negative feedback, if you just dismiss it like immediately and just think that it's all that person's problem, to me, that's a sign that you have unhealthy confidence, which might not even be real confidence, right? Like it might be actually insecurity that you hide by pretending to be confident. So I think if you're not open to criticism and feedback and then able to do that process, like to me that's a sign that your confidence is not real. It's brittle. So humility, like I said, humility is the ability to is a very healthy sense of self-acceptance by doing the work, the kind of work I do with my clients, right? And then being open to growth and open to learning, but also like protecting yourself through healthy boundaries. So like if I have a conflict with someone, like I don't like the way they spoke to me, they don't like the thing there, like both are valid, right? It's really like, how do I want to move forward? Like is it very important that I actually say something? Because actually for my own integrity and sense of self, I need to say something, even though it's going to make me feel uncomfortable and I'd prefer to avoid it. If so, you need to say something. Is it something that I can just let go because actually I'm having an oversized emotional reaction? If so, I need to let it go. So I think, that is what humility is. It's not accepting other people's opinions sometimes. Yeah,
Everything.
Exactly.
Yes, I see. Madeline, thank you so much for your time. Thanks a lot for joining us today and talking and discussing this important topic. And I hope that all the participants and the joiners for today's episode got the benefit actually they expected from the episode. I see that many of the inquiries and the question more and more in the chat, and I think we can continue the discussion within the comments on LinkedIn especially. So we will try our maximum actually to respond to all of these inquiries and questions.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'd like to respond to more. Thank you everyone for your interaction.
Thanks a
Okay,
lot. Many
bye-bye.
thanks. يلا okay. Let's see you inshallah on coming Wednesday with new episode, new topic, and another one of our distinguished guests. The next episode actually will be with one of the renowned project management professionals, Dr. Saadi Adra, talking about Compass for 2025 for the organization, and many aspects relates to the people working in the project management field. See you inshallah on coming Wednesday at the same time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.